So if I'm not mistaken, this is the highest grossing Indian film of all time, right? Is it well deserved? Well, find out. So I want to start off by saying welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, welcome. If you're a fanatic of everything entertainment, I do a lot of movie reviews, ranking videos, list videos, 4K reviews, and a lot of other cool things you might find along the way. So in today's movie review, I'll be talking about 2018's Baahubali 2, The Conclusion. When Bala conspires against his brother to become the king of Mahishmati, he has him killed by Katpa and imprisons him. Years later, his brother's son returns to avenge his father's death. So let's start with the negatives because I do want to end on a positive note. So like I said, talking about the first film, I don't know why the second film isn't first and the first film isn't second, because they just keep going back and forth from quote-unquote present day to 25 years ago, and I would like for it to be in chronological order instead of like Quentin Tarantino style, because the first 2 hours of this film is straight up flashback scenes. Last 45 minutes to 50 minutes, is quote-unquote present day. That's the only way I can separate these two timelines, even though they're both in ancient India. But I do like that we get to see what happened to Baahubali, and it gives context to certain things that happens later on. This next thing I'm going to bring up is pretty petty because this is a big part of Indian cinema, but I did not care for most of the musical numbers in here except for one. And that's the one with the ship being in the sky, which is really awe-inspiring and is just spectacular to look at, and it brings Baahubali and his love interest closer together. But yeah, all the other ones just don't do it for me, and I did skip past a few. I hate doing that because they do like recap what has happened in the story, or they talk about what is going to happen in the story, which I do like that about, music being in Indian cinema, but I'm just not a fan of most of them except for one in this film. There was more that I liked in the first film instead of this one, but like I said, they do recap the story and tell you where the story is going, but I just felt like most of them were pretty unnecessary. And another thing, you have the characters that you despise in a lot of films, and this film is no different because we have the likes of, I am going to mispronounce all these names, so don't take offense to it. I am trying my hardest to pronounce these, but yeah, we have the likes of Bala Ladeva, which is Bahubali's brother, and then Bija Ladeva, I'm really sorry for that, which is Bala's dad, and then Sethupathi, that is one of the dudes working for Bala. But yeah, you have those characters that you don't care for. Every film has those type of characters, but there's a character that I didn't expect to not like in here because she was pretty likable in the first film, and she's likable until a certain point in this film, that being Shivagami, which is, I know I mispronounced that as well, but that's Bahubali's and Bala's mother, even though she's just really Bala's mother. She adopted Baahubali. But I loved her in the first film, like I said, and I loved her up until a certain point in this film. But there's a midway point in here to where she shuns both Baahubali and his pregnant wife, given she sees through the lies at the end of the film after she makes a grave mistake, and she sort of does avenge herself and saves Savu and smuggles him out of the kingdom. But honestly, I don't know how in the hell she could be so blind to what's really going on. Because every time a character, speaks up and tells her what's going on, she gets offended, and I hated that. Also, where the hell is Avantika? Which, yes, I'm mispronouncing that as well, but we only see her in the last 20 minutes in here. She barely has any dialogue. She does have scenes where she does kick ass, but she was honestly one of my favorite characters in the first film, and I thought they were going to do more with her character in this film because she is Savu's love interest, and their chemistry was great in the first film. I don't think they really have a scene together in this film, which is really weird. But with all that being said, let's get into the mixed aspects with this film. Despite me having a problem with the way the story was told, going back and forth and everything, I do think that it flows a little bit better than that of the first film, but I'm still not entirely a fan. The CGI, once again, is very mixed for me because at times, like I've said before, there's times where you can definitely tell it's CGI, and there's times where it just looks really bad, but there's also times where it looks really good. But I will say, this film had 2 or 3 times more the budget than the first film, and it does show because everything does look quite a bit better, even though there's some things that stick out that don't look entirely the best. But with all that being said, let's get on to the stuff that I did like about this film. Once again, the acting is really good. There's not one dull performance in here. There are some that are over the top, but that's what you've come to expect with Indian cinema. But highlights include Baahubali, Savu, Avantika, Katpa, Bala Ladeva, Shivagami, and Devasena. Yes, I mispronounced all of those, and I'm really sorry about that. Speaking of Katpa, which, I sort of felt for him in the first film, but then once I learned that he betrayed Baahubali, I lost all respect for him. But then this film came around and showed what situation he was in and why he did what he did. And not saying, it justifies what he did, but he revolts against the kingdom, in present day with Savu, and sort of does redeem himself. And Katpa is honestly one of my favorite characters in this franchise. But I love that his character arc comes full circle, and seeing that was just tremendous. Also, the last act in here, which is like the last 40 to 45 minutes, is just one big action sequence, and it's crazy. There's things in here that you have to see to believe. It's just absolutely nuts. Despite whatever I said about, the way the story is told in both of these films, the last act makes up for it because, it's a very satisfying conclusion to the story, and like I said, it just makes everything worth it. Savu finally gets the upper hand and defeats Bala, which is his uncle, but there's a couple of times where you think Savu isn't gonna make it, and you question all of your life choices up until this very moment. But of course, Savu gets the upper hand, and him and his people burn Bala alive, which is very cruel, but it's well deserved for his character because he was an asshole. And because of that, Savu finally takes the crown and becomes the people's king. So does this film deserve to be the highest grossing Indian film of all time? Personally, I don't think so. I think that title should go to RRR, but that's just me. But with that being said, I'm going to be giving Baahubali 2, The Conclusion, an overall grade of a 71%. So let me know what you think about this movie in the comments below. Have you seen it? Do you like it better than the first? Let me know. But with that being said, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.